Round 1 of the FIM World 500cc Motocross Championship kicked off in Australia. Broadford, to be precise. Across the other side of the world, the riders had to travel an awful long way. Now, could this be the year that the Belgian-Flemish lion Joel Smets could win back that #1 plate, which last year he lost with consistent mechanical problems with the Husaberg. This year is on a new bike, the KTM. There's the reigning champion, #1, Andrea Bartolini, the Italian. Well, the Australian crowd here to be treated to some world motocross, something that they'd never experienced before. Race 1 was on the line. Who would get that all-important hole shot? Would it be Smets? Would it be Bartolini? Would it be Marnik Bavort, Bartolini's new teammate for this year, on the 4-stroke after swapping up from the 250s from last year? Well, the race was underway. And it was number 88. This was Andrew McFarlane on the Kawasaki. The local Australian had shown the world-class riders that this boy had got what it takes to lead them away. Obviously, the local knowledge of this track playing good steed for the man. Well, there's Smets, number 3. He had a tall task already on. Here for round 1, he'd need to catch this youngster. A man, no doubt, tipped to move into world motocross for next year. But there was Smets, right up behind McFarlane. It didn't take the former 3-time world champion long to side his way through, and it didn't take him long to get through to take that all-important checkered flag for the start of the year. Yamaha mounted Marnik Bavort came through to take second place. A good start for the former 250 man, and local man Andrew McFarlane came home to take a well-earned 3rd place. So Smets it is then that took the Memento Trophy after race 1. Former 250 rider Marnik Bavort came home 2nd, local man McFarlane 3rd. Then it was Byrne, Shane and Daryl King, the 2 brothers, and the defending champion Bartolini rounded out that top 7 with just the 9 points. So race 2 came down onto the line. We'd had a bit of rain. In the meantime, the track was a little damper. Who was going to get that all-important hole shot? Well, McFarlane with not such a good start this time. As they shot off into the lead, it was the man that finished 7th in race 1, Andrea Bartolini, is hanging on to that #1 plate that led them away. Where was Smets? That was the question. And there he was, right up into 2nd place. Conditions were treacherous. Bavort, 2nd in race 1, was back in 3rd place, chasing the 2 in front. So this was very much a Yamaha and KTM show at the moment. Peter Johansson there, teammate to Joel Smets, sitting back in that 4th place. Now, could he get on terms with the 2 in front? Well, it was only a question of time before that former world champion, the Flemish lion, 31-year-old Joel Smets, found his way to the front. Into 2nd place now, number 15, and that's Daryl King. So Smets opening the season in fine style with 2 wins, 40 points. Surely he could regain that #1 plate for this year. Kurt Nicker, the team manager, newly appointed for this year, also delighted with the result. So King 2nd, Bavort, Bartolini, Peter Johansson, Ivo Leop and Shane King rounded out that top 7 here at Broadford in Australia. Here's Daryl King about the race.
Yeah, I suppose I have to be happy with that, you know. Haven't ridden a Grand Prix for 6-7 months after that neck injury last year, so leading that last race was a buzz for me. I really thought I could win it. I didn't think Joel would come on so strong at the end. You know, you got to take your head off to the guy. He's a gorilla, but I'm sure I can beat him this year. You know, when Stefan comes back, we're going to make our Husqvarna better and better, and we're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Overall winner Joel Smets. How had the race gone for him?
I actually took a pretty bad start. I think around 15th, 20th place. And, you know, there was so much dirt on the track, so my goggles got so dirty. But I didn't want to take too many risks because I know it's 45 minutes, and if you crash, you just don't take any points. So I thought, like, let's try to finish top 5. And yeah, like within the race, I got a little bit more confident. And then I was a little bit lucky that, like halfway through the race, like Andrea crashed with a lap rider. And so then everything got a little bit together again, and then the race, the second motor opened up a little bit again. And I didn't really expect to pass Daryl on the last lap, but I just, like, with 2 laps to go, I really had the right line, and I say, hey, there's 2 more laps to go. So, and I had only like 5-6 seconds. I said, if I just push it a little bit, I can take 3 seconds a lap and I still have a chance. If I'm pushing, he maybe gets a little bit nervous, and that's more or less what happened. And I got past him the last lap, so that was really nice.
So at the end of round 1 of the season, Joel Smets led the championship with Bevorts, Daryl King, Bartolini, Andrew McFarlane and Shane King with Peter Johansson, 18 points in 7th place. And as Smets making new friends down under, round 2 of the series moved on to Italy. Could Smets extend that lead that he built up at round 1? Well, time would tell. 2 races to go. Round 2 as Marnik Bevorts led them down onto the line, then with King. Smets 4th quickest in time training behind the defending world champion number 1, Andre Bartolini. As the gate dropped here on race 1, who was going to get that all-important hole shot? There was a lot of banging and buffeting on that first corner, and a casualty of that first corner was the defending champion number 1, Andre Bartolini. But Bevorts had got a stormer. There is Bartolini, desperately trying to kick that 426 Works Yamaha, that Rinaldi bike, back into life, and he managed to do just that, but he had a mountain to climb if he needed to get back onto terms with the front runners. Out front, it was his teammate, Marnik Bevorts, that led them round. Where was Smets? There was Daryl King, with Christian Berner, number 10, in close attendance. Massimo Bartolini, number 18, had the series lead at number 3, Joel Smets, the Belgium, right in his rear wheel tracks. But Bevorts was setting a storming pace at the front. The man that had done so well in 250 Grand Prix races in the past had decided to switch to 500 four-strokes for the year 2000, and it seemed that the switch was the right thing to do. Daryl King, 2nd overall in the first round in Australia, was looking good on the new Husqvarna in 2nd place. Of course, his teammate, Stefan Everts, was out of the Grand Prix after an injury at the Beaucaire International. He'd broken his arm, once again, same place as last year. Former 250 Grand Prix runner Marnik Bevorts took the win on the new 426 Yamaha. But there was a titanic clash going on for 2nd place. Daryl King was hanging grimly on the Husqvarna because he had the Flemish Lion, Joel Smets, right there with him, but the result went to King. Let's see it again, over the line, King just with a nose in front, Smets having to finish in 3rd place and settle for 15 points. So there it was, Bevorts from King from Smets. Bartolini had charged from last right up to 4th, then Massimo Bartolini, Owen Macklinger and Rupert Volkner, the Austrian, in 7th place. Race 2, the gate dropped. Who would get that all-important first corner? Smets had got a good start, 3rd in race 1, needed to improve. He led the championship coming to this round in Italy. And Smets it was that soon found his way into the lead and held on to it. The Flemish Lion, the man from Belgium, was in top form, and that KTM, a new mount for this year after riding Husenbergs for 3 years. It was the Husenberg that cost him his championship last year with mysterious mechanical breakdowns was the problem. Number 23 was the next man around. That was Gert-Jan van Doorn, the Dutchman. There was Johansson, number 2. There was the defending champion, number 1, Italian, Andre Bartolini. Not a good start for him, but a good start for this man, Smets. Everybody reckoned that he was the force that you'd need to look out for this year, and they were right. Johansson, his teammate, was beginning to pressure 2nd place man, Gert-Jan van Doorn. So number 2, the Swede. But there is Bartolini, back in 4th place. 426cc Yamaha up against the plus 500 KTMs. But Smets on that KTM number 3 came through to take the 2nd race win here in Italy. His teammate Johansson looking good on the same machine. KTM 1 and 2. As Kurt Nichols said at the start of the season, we intend to turn the world orange. Bartolini 3rd, Alton and then 4th. Denis, King and Massimo Bartolini rounds out the top 7. Smets takes the overall from Bartolini, King, Bartolini, Bevorts, Johansson and Macklinger. Top 7. This means Smets leads the championship with 75 points. So top 3 there, Andre Bartolini, Joel Smets and Daryl King occupying that rostrum. So there you see the points position. Daryl King is still 2nd from Bevorts, from Bartolini, Johansson, Andrew McFarlane and Massimo Bartolini 7th place and 20 points. Bearing in mind, Andrew McFarlane did not ride in Italy. So round 3 of the series came to Valkenswaard here in Holland, the deep sand. Would Smets do it very much on almost home soil? But in race 1, no, it was Peter Johansson with Smets and Bartolini, Macklinger, James Marsh and Miska Aaltonen rounding out that top 6 as the race got underway. But it wasn't long before Joel Smets decided to put his teammate under pressure. He went through to take the lead. Smets then from Johansson, Monique Bevorts hanging on to 3rd. Andre Bartolini, teammate to Bevorts in 4th. Marsh and Macklinger, but this was the battle because Bevorts was challenging for 2nd place. Looking further down the field, Neil Prince, the British rider there, number 99, in the top 12, having a good ride. So new 2nd place man, Monique Bevorts on the 55 Rinaldi Yamaha. Out of 3rd place went Peter Johansson when he crashed into the Radson Hoarding. Into 3rd place then, teammate to Bevorts, came Andre Bartolini, the defending champion. But there was no stopping the Flemish Lion. Joel Smets was out there in the lead despite the attempts of Monique Bevorts to catch him. Smets was on course then to take 20 points here in race 1 to extend his lead in the championship. Remember, he came here 75 points, this would be another 20. So Smets took the win. Bevorts chased him home on the Yamaha for 2nd place.
I knew it was going to be, I knew Monique doesn't give up so easy, so I knew I had to keep on going.
So there's the classification. Smets, Bevorts, Aaltonen, Leok, Van Doorn, Macklinger and Engdahl round out to the top 7 from race 1. Race 2 still yet to come down onto the line. The crowd here really treated to some superb World 500cc racing. Here they go. Who's going to get that all-important hole shot? Peter Johansson is back out on the track with his wrist strapped up and a painkilling injection, but he got a good start right behind Erwin Macklinger, number 13, but Smets takes an unusual tumble, collects a couple of riders there, but Smets is going to have to come right from the very back of the field. This will really be a test of his skill and determination. As the rest of the field came through, let's have a look at that once again. Smets, not a good start for him. He got caught up in the mid-pack of that. Front wheel got away and down he went. Very lucky not to be collected more seriously by the remaining riders that were chasing. I'd accept somebody rode over his bike, but that wasn't a problem. So, despite the wrist injury, Peter Johansson flew the flag for Yamaha. Monique Bevorts, number 55, challenging for that lead. Bevorts certainly a threat here, and it wasn't long before he went through to take the lead. Johansson, obviously not at his best with that injured wrist from race 1, hanging on grimly to 2nd place. Then Macklinger, then it was number 6, Miska Aaltonen, then King, Christian Bernen, number 10. But it wasn't long before Bevorts, the former 250 man, was really feeling at home in the sand here at Valkenswaard. Smets was on a charge, as he always does, scything his way past the slower riders, trying to get back on terms with the men in front. This is why the man is a 3-time former world champion. Christian Burnham, number 10 there, standing no chance from the onslaught of the Belgium ace. But meanwhile, out front, unhurried by anyone, was Rinaldi Yamaha rider 55, Monique Bevorts. But it wasn't long before Smets was up alongside his teammate, who was currently in 2nd place. So Joel had come from dead last up to 2nd now, as Peter Johansson moved over and let the man through. Good team tactics. Johansson having to ride again with that injured wrist after crashing in race 1. Bevorts unhurried. Smets tried to catch him but unable to do so. He took the win in race 2 and extremely happy about that result. The 250 man was really setting his pace here in the 500 class.
I think so. I think first heat I proved already, and in Italy also I could won the Grand Prix also in Italy, but I had a good start today in the 2nd heat. That's what I wanted, and Joel was not so good, so I had an easy race now.
So classifications after race 2 here. Monique Bevorts from Smets, Willie van Wissel, Peter Johansson, Andre Bartolini, Daryl King, Gert-Jan van Doorn, rounding out that top 7 here. So the overall standings goes to Bevorts this time, equal with Smets, but Bevorts taking it by the better result in race 2. Leok and Aaltonen there in the top 4. So there are your top 3 then from round 3 here in Valkenswaard. So the world classification, Smets still leads it from Bevorts, King, Bartolini, Johansson, Van Doorn and Aaltonen. 36 points, 7th place. Round 4 then moved on to Spain. KTM's Peter Johansson, number 2, experienced a big crash at round 3. Would he be fit to race here for round 4?
First motor I had a big crash and I hurt my wrist a little bit, so I have to stop that race. But then for the second race I could race because I have a lot of help from the doctors in the Netherlands. It's not too bad actually. If it's too many jumps, then it's for sure painful, but it's possible to ride.
So as race 1 then came down onto the line here in Spain, how would Johansson get on? Massimo Bartolini there, number 18, having a problem getting the bike started. So as we waited for the 15-second board to go up and the 5-second board to spin around, there it goes. That gate will drop any moment now. Who's going to get that all-important hole shot? Make the first corner before anyone else and have a clear run at the track on lap 1. And no surprises, it was Smets, with some of the other riders finding the track not wide enough in the first corner. Let's have a look at it again. 43 there, that's the Belgian rider. Van Dijk, who took an early head plant into the sand. Smets led them away. It was Bartolini behind him in second place. Monique Bevorts, the winner at the previous round, was back in 4th place. But Joel Smets, once again in dominant form here in race 1, setting the early place for Bartolini to chase. There's Bevorts back in 4th. And Smets in a class of his own at the moment. Andrei Bartolini, the defending champion on the Yamaha with the number 1 plate, unable to match the pace of the man in front. Peter Johansson was in 3rd place, but Johansson about to be gifted 2nd, well, almost gifted 2nd, as Andrei Bartolini made an unusual mistake and Johansson took the chance and dived through for that 2nd place after battling side by side. Let's have a look at it again. Landing in the soft sand, almost threw him over the bars. He managed to save it, but not before Johansson had a chance to get into that berm and stick his KTM up the inside. Well, the battling on between those two had allowed Monique Bevorts to come through and snatch 2nd place. Bartolini was relegated back to 3rd, with Johansson back to 4th. But once again, Smets it was that took a well-earned 20 points from race 1. Monique Bevorts held on to 2nd with Bartolini, Johansson, Daryl King, Alton and Shane King, Joachim Carlsen, Gert-Jan van Dorn and Evo Leok top 10. So as race 2 came down onto the line, could Smets once again take that KTM out into the lead? Gate dropped and away they went. Who again would get that all-important first corner, and it looked as number 3, Joel Smets had done it again. Bevorts 2nd in race 1, stuck on the gate, stalled the bike. This was going to cost him dearly, as Joel Smets led off with Bartolini there behind him, then Peter Johansson, then Daryl King on the number 15 Husqvarna. Joachim Carlsen 21 was also in that chasing pack. But up to 2nd place now, despite that wrist injury, came Peter Johansson. So the KTM team were 1 and 2. Monique Bevorts from dead last on the gate up into 6th place. Tremendous ride from the Belgium ace. So Joel Smets, as always, in dominant form, made the rest of the pack chase him throughout the race, but no one caught him. He came through with a celebratory wheelie to take the win in Heat 2. His teammate Peter Johansson chased him home in 2nd place, so KTM's 1 and 2. The world indeed was starting to look very, very orange. Andrei Bartolini on the rostrum there in 3rd place. So as the champagne was sprayed, Smets it was confirmed as the winner. Johansson, Bartolini, Daryl King, Shane King, Bevorts, Macklinger, Burnham, Altonen and Van Drunen rounding out that top 10 on the Husqvarna. So as round 5 moved on to the snow-capped mountains of Austria, Schwanenstad to be precise, all eyes were focused on that KTM camp. Could Smets do it again. 2 wins at the previous round. Circuit very different. Not deep sand, it's a very much natural terrain circuit. But for some of them, that first corner, as always, causing a problem. Number 7, Vico Garcia there. But out in front and down went Smets. It was Bartolini that led. Smets was putting him under pressure. The back wheel of the bike got away and he went down. So he'd have to pick it up and go after the guys in front. So Bartolini relieved of that pressure now. The defending world champion with his teammate Marnik Bavorts there right behind him. So at the moment it's Yamaha 1 and 2. At the previous round it was KTM's 1 and 2. Now it was Smets who was having to play catch up with a damaged front fork slider. The Flemish Lion was on a charge. When this man is under pressure, he really does know how to pull all the stops out. There it is, you can see that fork slider bouncing around. Hopefully that won't get into the front wheel. Marnik Bavorts had now taken the lead. Andre Bartolini relegated back to 2nd place. Having to deal with the slower back markers, so the 2 Yamaha men out there in front. Behind those 2, KTM's Peter Johansson was flying the orange flag, because remember Joel Smets had taken a tumble on the opening lap whilst in 2nd place. But Marnik Bavorts, proving that he is a serious threat to the championship this year, came through to take Heat 1 win. Andre Bartolini, his teammate, held on grimly to 2nd place.
Yeah, in the beginning I pushed a little bit, so I came to 2nd place behind Andrea. I know Andrea's really fast on this track, so I tried to follow his lines. And in the end I was pushing a little bit harder and I could pass him, and that was good for me.
So Bavorts then takes his step onto the rostrum and receives the trophy for his win in race 1. Andre Bartolini 2nd, Peter Johansson through into 3rd place. Massimo Bartolini taking 4th, Joachim Carlsen 5th, Altonen, and then Bernd Eggenbach taking 7th. No sign of the number 3 bike of Joel Smets. Well, as the crowd eagerly waited for the start of race 2, could Smets make amends in this one? Or could Bavorts take himself another win? Here they come. The charge is on into that right-hander. Smets has got a good start. And we have problems already. Looks like Yogi Carlsen, that's Daryl King, and that's Bavorts then, the winner of race 1. Right at the back of the grid, he's going to have to go really well now if he's going to make up maximum points to go with his win from race 1. But this was the man that finished 3rd on the step in race 1, now led. Peter Johansson, no sign or problem with that wrist. He's out there in front. We're looking back now for his teammate, but Johansson was putting on a tremendous pace. Bartolini it was that was chasing in 2nd spot. There was Smets back in 3rd. So Smets not having the best of times here in Austria. Johansson coming home then from 3rd in race 1 to 1 in race 2. Surely the team would be more than happy with that result. So we went into the paddock, we caught up with the man and asked him about the race.
No, it was a good race. Whole shot, and then I pulled away a few seconds each lap, and he was coming up to 10 seconds, and then Andrea pushed for a few laps, and he was coming down to 8, and then I did a little bit more pushing, and then down to up to 10 again. So it was a perfect race. My KTM was running very good, and I didn't have any problem at all.
We caught up with Kiwi Daryl King and asked him what happened on that first corner.
This track's got a pretty scary first turn. Gets pretty tight in there with 40 riders, and I got just sandwiched in the middle of the top few guys and went down and nearly ripped my boot completely off my right side and spent a lot of time kicking my bike. You know, took over a minute to kick it and get it going, and then I thought I'm just going to go for it.
So the result then of race 2, Joel Smets managing this time to get on the podium alongside Andre Bartolini and his teammate Peter Johansson taking the top step and the trophy. So there it was, confirmed results: Johansson, Bartolini, Smets, Massimo Bartolini, Macklinger, Altonen and Fabrizio Denis. The overall result then went to Peter Johansson, his first one of the season. Andre Bartolini there also. As we look at those overall results, Johansson from Bartolini from Massimo Bartolini. Smets was fourth, Altonen, Monique Bevorts and Erwin Macklinger rounding out that top 7. Round 6 moved on to Fox Hills in England. It was cancelled. We asked Smets why.
What I would like to say is that this decision is not made by the riders. It's really and the riders and the jury and the promoters, everybody together. In order to keep it safe and healthy for everybody. The main problem was the danger for our eyes. Only the rider who takes the whole shot can keep his goggles on, and all the other riders, we could see it in the 1-2-5s after one lap, everybody has thrown his goggles off, and then it's really dangerous for the eyes. So that was actually the main thing. The track was not okay. The track was bad, but we could get around. We didn't get stuck really, so we could keep on riding. That was not the main problem, but the main problem was just the safety reason, the eyes.
So the Grand Prix was cancelled. We moved on to Spa in Belgium with a little bit more glamour. Our pom-pom girls had joined us for most of the year around Europe as the riders came on to the start gate for race 1. Bad start there from the inside from 99. That was the English rider, Neil Prince, but it was Smets that once again, in front of very much his home crowd, got a stormer of a start. Chasing behind Smets, it was Bartolini, then Johansson, his teammate. Then it was Andre Bartolini back in 4th place. Daryl King on the Husqvarna. Marcel van Drunen, he was down in 6th place, but it was Johansson here having a storming battle with number 18, Massimo Bartolini. The track here built and designed by former world champion Georges Jobet. Here Spa-Francorchamps, the famous road race circuit, hosting its first ever motocross Grand Prix. It was a triple header. Surely it would be a place that we would see Grand Prix in the future. But Smets in front of that home crowd, demonstrating why he is the best. He came home to take the win in race 1. And once again to extend his lead in the world standings. The question now, could he do much the same in race 2? So as the crowd bathed in sunshine here on the Sunday, waited for the gate to drop on that second race. Again, Neil Prince on the Elf 99 CAS Honda. Not a good start for the British rider, but a good start for number 1, Andre Bartolini. Smets was also with him there on the inside. So was Massimo, so was King. Mitska Olsen, number 6, going around the outside, but this was the battle at the front as Andre Bartolini desperately defended that first place, but it didn't last for long because Smets surged past him. So could Smets stay out in front and win that second race? For Andre Bartolini, disaster when he came off the bike. But no such disasters were going to befall this man here in front of his home crowd. He was on form. So Bevorts was up to second, Johansson was third, then it was Massimo Bartolini, then Daryl King, Marcel van Drunen, once again in 6th spot. Could Monique Bevorts, also in front of his home crowd, stage a comeback and maybe snatch the win before the end of the race? Further down the field after restarting the bike, world champion Andre Bartolini, but that wasn't the only troubles he experienced. Crashing with Siggy Bauer in the top end of the circuit sent him sprawling into the spectators and into the wooded area, fortunately without injury. Smets came through again to take a win. That made 2 out of 2 here at Spa-Francorchamps for the Belgian rider. Bevorts would chase him home in 2nd place, but Smets was on a high. Those World Championship points were stacking up round by round by round. That number 1 plate was looking even more certain to go back on that bike for the year 2001. So Smets from Bevorts from Johansson, King, Van Drunen, Joki Carlsen, Francisco Garcia rounds out the top 7. So there's the top 3 from race 2. That's the overall result. Smets, Johansson, Daryl King, Van Drunen, Bevorts, Bartolini and Francisco Garcia in that 7th place. So this is the point standing so far. 7 rounds gone, Smets leads with 214 points. The question now is, can anybody catch him? And on current form, it's extremely unlikely. So round 8 moved on to Tibro here in Sweden. Could Smets once again do the job and go out and win? Could Bavort claw back some of those points? As the crowd turned in on the Sunday morning, ready to enjoy this World 500cc motocross racing, we waited for the riders to come down onto the line. Obviously a Peter Johansson fan there, and you would expect that. He was here on home territory. The Swede, number 2, coming down onto the line beside Bartolini and Smets. Could Johansson win in front of his home crowd? There's the Italian, Andre Bartolini, already beginning to realise that number 1 plate was gradually slipping off the front of his bike. Race 1, who would get that all-important first corner? It was a KTM, there was no doubt in that. Some of the riders had decided to broaden the first corner on the track, but fortunately without injury. It was Smets once again that set the early pace. The Flemish Lion still being pursued by fellow Belgium Marnik Bavort on the 55 Rinaldi Yamaha. These two had been going handlebar to handlebar all year leading up to this 8th round. Could Bavort get one over on him? Minska Altonen with teammate Daryl King there, number 15, right beside him. Meanwhile at the front, Smets and Bavort were tussling and they both crashed, giving this man the lead in his home Grand Prix. Bavort had managed to hang on to 2nd place. His teammate Andre Bartolini was in 3rd, with early race leader Joel Smets trailing back in 4th place, trying to get back on form with the 3 riders in front. But Smets was unable to do that, handing the win to his fellow KTM teammate Peter Johansson, certainly to the delight of the home crowd. Smets could only manage 4th place, and we caught up with Joel and asked him what exactly happened during the course of that race.
But after halfway through the race, when I started taking a few seconds on Marnik, I got stuck behind the lap rider who just denied the blue flag. It was nearly one complete lap until we crashed. Actually, he was still in front of me. I didn't really try to pass him because I thought he was gonna make place. He just didn't do it. So stupid. And yeah, then of course I knew Marnik was gonna come back. And suddenly, yeah, when we both got stuck behind that slow rider, yeah, we hit each other. We crashed together. So yeah, that's racing.
So race 1 result then: Peter Johansson from Marnik Bavort from Smets in 3rd, Van Wiesel, Jochen Carlsen, Andre Bartolini and Daryl King, top 7. Race 2 then, onto the line. Could Johansson do it again in front of his home crowd, or would Smets make amends for that crash with Bavort in race 1? Well, it was a Yamaha that led them into the first corner, but not for long, because Smets was soon in front. Marnik Bavort relegated back to that 2nd place, where he'd spent most of the season chasing that number 3 KTM. Winner of race 1, Peter Johansson, was back in 3rd. Johansson on course possibly to take an overall win if he could get to 2nd. So the 2 KTMs with the Yamaha sandwich between them were setting an electrifying pace here in Sweden. Smets going through, Bavort still chasing in a vain attempt to take that win here from the 2nd race. Bartolini, then it was Johansson. So Bartolini had moved up a place to 3rd. Johansson dropping back to 4th. For Miska Altonen, a problem with his Radson Husqvarna. But a titanic scrap on here between 35 Egberg and the Swede number 26, Jonas Engdahl. These two having their own little private war, something to prove in front of their home fans. Meanwhile, out front, it was the KTM of Joel Smets that came through to take the checkered flag, just in front of Yamaha's Marnik Bavort. That was a close battle to the line between those two. 3rd place will be taken by the 2nd Yamaha of Andre Bartolini, number 1. And 4th place teammate to the race winner, Joel Smets, was the Swede. The winner of race 1, number 2, Peter Johansson. So as Smets came through, celebrating his 2nd race result, and of course the overall position at the end of the day. So race 2 results confirm: Smets, Bavort, Bartolini, Johansson, Carlsen, another Swede, Van Dorn. So at the halfway stage of the championship, Joel Smets leads, but the battle is on for 2nd, 3rd and 4th between Bavort, Johansson and Bartolini. And you remember Daryl King referred to Smets as the gorilla. Now you know why. Round 9 then, moved on to France. Could Smets extend that championship lead? Who was going to get second? Who was going to get third? Who will get fourth? As the gate dropped on race 1, Smets got a great start up the inside. The rest were left to battle for the remaining positions. So could the Lion do what he does best, and that's win? He was out front. So far this year, the KTM had been faultless. Unlike the problems that he had the previous year when he lost that #1 plate, while on Hussenberg with continual electrical problems, that KTM had really been sorted for this season. The Yamaha of Andre Bartolini was going well. That had been fairly trouble-free. So it was Smets that led. We were looking back behind him. It was Bevorts in second place. There was no strange thing. That's how it had stood for round after round, leading here to round 9. Andre Bartolini was back behind those two in third place. A familiar position that he'd adopted for most of the season so far. Peter Johansson was back in fourth, teammate of course to the series and race leader, Joel Smets. So Smets in dominating form. On course then to take race 1 win here. Monique Bevorts on the 426 factory Yamaha, chasing in second place, but seemingly not able to match the pace of the bike in front. Andre Bartolini, who by this time had realised that #1 plate was certainly slipping away. Smets came through then to take the checkered flag.
Yeah, Monique pushed really hard the first few laps, even the first few turns, I should say, because yeah, I took more or less the whole shot, but Monique was really aggressive and wanted to take the lead straight away, and I think that was a good move from him because it's a lot of stones on the tracks. Often there's only one line, so it's hard to pass, and it's also dangerous to take somebody's rear wheel because of the stones. So, but then yeah, I picked up the pace after a few laps. Stayed like 50 meters behind, took it a little bit safe, and then I picked up the rhythm, had a good pace, and wait for the right moment to get past, and yeah, first try was the right one.
So Smets confirmed as the winner. Bevorts, Bartolini, Johansson, Massimo Bartolini, Daryl King and Christian Burnham down there in 7th place. Race 2. Could Smets do this again? 31 years of age. 3 times a World 500cc champion, Joel Smets. Is he going to make it 4 times? He led. Bartolini was second, Bevorts was third with Joachim Carlsen 21 there on the first of the 2 strokes. Then it was Massimo Bartolini, number 18, but Smets was making no mistakes. Andre Bartolini this time had managed to elevate himself to 2nd place from 3rd in race 1. Could he catch this man in front? The Yamaha up against the all-dominant KTM. It would only be a mistake from Smets, I think, that would let Bartolini through. Bevorts, 2nd in race 1, was now in 3rd in race 2. Again, a mistake by either one of those two in front would give him a checkered flag, but it wasn't to be. Smets took it. To the delight of his team once again, that #1 plate was looking more assured for this year. Bartolini, Bevorts, Johansson, Bartolini, Van Wiesel and Garcia. The overall result with 40 points to Smets, with Bartolini, Bevorts and Johansson playing once again catch up. So by now, Joel Smets had put a permanent reservation slot on that #1 step this year. He was up there again, and could he keep it for round 10 in Belgium? As the Radson L&M girls were there with Daryl King, there is Monique Bevorts, ensuring that he has the best starting grid for the first race. Smets, his teammate Johansson. Could these two make it a 1 and 2 in race 1 here? Well, they were all a little bit eager to get away, and the result, some of them ended up stuck on the gate. Massimo Bartolini, number 18, being one of them. So into that first corner. Bevorts not getting the best of starts. It was Daryl King that led them down the hill. Christian Bernard, number 10, in second place. There was Andre Bartolini. Where was Smets? Hadn't been a good start for him. Johansson was there, slowly making his way up through the field, but without encountering one or two slower riders in doing so. There was Smets with Joki Karlsson, number 21, on the RWJ 500 Honda. One of very few two-strokes left in this open class championship, but Smets was doing what he does best from a bad start, and that was scythe his way up the leaderboard. Was he going to get on terms with the men in front? One rider after another he went past, and in some cases the others were refusing to give way and let him through. So Smets was on a one-man crusade at the moment, passing one rider after another in his endeavours to get further to the front, but unaware Daryl King, number 15, was out there in the lead. The L&M Radson Husqvarna was at last going to get itself a race win. Behind him in second place, the defending champion, number 1, Andre Bartolini, the Italian, knowing full well that the Spanish Lion, Joel Smets, was behind him, and probably happy in that knowledge. Could he hang on to second place, or could he have a crack at winning this one? Smets was up with him after a couple of laps later, and that dream of maybe taking second or first was gone because Smets was through. There was only this man now for Smets to beat to take the race win. And the Kiwi Daryl King was in a determined mood, and so was Marnik Bavorts. King it was that now had Smets right behind him. Could Smets get past him before the checkered flag? Smets had got a terrible start in this first race. Could he get past the Kiwi to take the race win? When you put this man under pressure, he really does respond well. And he is responding now, looking for the pass on the inside past the Kiwi, and he made it stick. So Daryl King, despite leading the race from the drop of the gate, was now down into second place, playing bridesmaid to the man that had been winning most of the season. Bavorts was having his own little war with Peter Johansson, number 2. These two were swapping places corner to corner, so Yamaha and KTM were at it again. But Smets came through in race 1 there to take the win. Despite that very poor start, we caught up with Joel and asked him what the problem had been.
Obviously I was riding so relaxed and so good lines, so that my speed was like 2 or 3 seconds a lap faster than anybody else, so I'm tired but very satisfied.
So the result then of race 1, Smets from King, from Bartolini, Bavorts, Johansson, Erwin Macklinger, Christian Burnham on the VOR, rounding out that top 7. So as we waited for the riders to go off the line for race 2, this time they were all taking it a little bit more cautiously. That first corner would be all important. Andre Bartolini looking good at the moment, but that looks like Smets that came through and pushed him wide. So once again, the Flemish Lion was out there in front. Could anybody catch this man this weekend? It was pretty unlikely. The KTM on form, running like a Swiss clock. Bavorts was back behind him, this time in second place. And Monique, realising that a possible number 1 plate for next year was extremely unlikely, so it was a question of consolidating that second place. The defending champion, number 1, Andre Bartolini, fully aware now that that number 1 plate had gone for next year. He indeed was looking maybe to take a second or third plate, but it was Smets in dominant form here in Belgium that took the second race win. Marnik Bavorts chased him home then for that second place. So the result then, Smets, Bavorts, Bartolini, Johansson, once again the Yamahas and KTMs. Daryl King, Karlsson as well. Smets took the over result from Bavorts and Bartolini, from King, Johansson, Karlsson and Macklinger. 14 points, 7th place. Who could depose this man. It was unlikely anyone could. The fans enjoyed it. The riders certainly enjoyed it. Round 11 moved across to England, Culham, beside the River Thames. Smets was here, but so was Gordon Crockard, the British rider, who normally rode in a 250 class. He was a wild card at this 500 Grand Prix. Could he take a podium place here today?
I wanted to make top 10 and I got 7th place, so I was delighted with that. Spent most of the day just getting used to the bike and that, setting it up and everything, and just getting dialed in really. And then come qualification, we were pretty much had the best setup we were going to get, and 7th place is ideal for the start. The start's quite fair. And again this morning I proved my speed. I think it was 8th or 9th again this morning, so I'm looking forward to the race. I think it'll be quite interesting.
So with young Crockard on the start line then, alongside the established 500 riders, they headed up that hill into the right-hander for the first time. Race 1 got underway, and it was Joel Smets then that led them through, with Monique Bavorts, then Andre Bartolini. But there was Crockard, 4th place for the wildcard rider, Gordon Crockard, the Irishman. Well, not everybody was having the best of times, that was for sure. It rained heavily here before the start of racing. Circuit conditions were very slippery and very technical. Smets dealing with the conditions well. Bevort still behind him in 2nd spot. But Crockard was on an absolute barnstormer. He'd moved up to 3rd place in front of the defending world champion Andre Bartolini. Crockard, who had won the Spanish Grand Prix, but Smets took the checkered flag in race 1. Bevort came home in 2nd place, but Gordon Crockard held on to 3rd spot. What a tremendous ride from the young Irishman. And clearly delighted with that result, as you can tell by the smile on his face. So Smets, Bevort, Crockard, Bartolini, Johansson, Daryl King and Jan van Doorn, they're in 7th place. So as they came down onto the line for race 2, where the conditions here at Culham in England, Oxfordshire, had not improved. The gate dropped and they made that charge up the hill into that tight right-hander. Who would emerge out in the lead? Well, this time it was the Yamaha of Monique Bavorts. Kurt Nickel, team manager at KTM, anxiously wondering where his man is. And the answer is back in about 4th place. Smets hadn't made the best of starts in this race. He was having once again to charge through the field. Bavorts was out there in the lead, happy in the knowledge that Smets was back behind him. Johansson went through, then it was King. Smets then charging through into 3rd place. But the question was, where was 3rd place man from race 1? Gordon Crockard. High hopes of him finishing on the podium at the end of the day. Johansson going through, still hanging on to that top position, but Smets was closing in on him. But all eyes were still looking for Gordon Crockard. There was Smets, up now in front of Johansson, chasing Bavorts for the lead. There was Bartolini, back behind those two in a familiar place. There was the race leader, who now had Smets right behind him. So this was the battle for 1st place now. Johansson settling back for 3rd, and 4th behind him, Bartolini. While in 6th place, Crockard had taken a tumble. We asked him about it.
I just made the pass for 5th place. I came down the hill and I had to take a different line to close the door, so that Van Doorn couldn't repass, and there was a rut there that I didn't know was there, and I hit the rut at such a speed, the bike bounced and I just had a crash.
Unfortunate end for the young Irishman Gordon Crockard after that storming ride in race 1. Meanwhile, back at the front it was the Flemish line. Joel Smets leading from Monique Bavorts in 2nd place. Both of these men 31 years of age. Smets then wins race 2. Well delighted with that result as well. Bavorts chased him home for 2nd place. A familiar role now for him. Johansson was 3rd, Bartolini 4th, then Daryl King, Joachim Karlsson and Jan van Doorn rounding out that top 7. So Smets heads up to that number 1 step on the podium, where he's been so many times this year. Smets, Bavorts, Johansson, Bartolini, King, Van Dorn, Gordon Crockard, despite not finishing race 2, still finished in 7th place. On to round 12, Germany. And as the gate dropped on race 1, who was going to get the all-important hole shot? It was a Yamaha that was out there in front. Smets was right beside him, so Smets it was that nailed the hole shot once again. Who could stop this man? Could either of the two Yamaha riders prevent his march on to that World Championship? Certainly not this man at the moment, 55, 31-year-old Belgian Monique Bavorts. Neither could this man, Peter Johansson, the Swede, who had won this first race in his home Grand Prix. But for some riders, it all came to a grisly end. Number 10, Christian Burnham, being one of them. And some doubts there about the marshalling. Obviously no flags being waved there, so riders running into the other ones, the fallen ones. Smets it was, stayed out of trouble, that went through to take the win. Another 20 points. Another step closer to that World Championship. Bavorts home in 2nd place, a position that he'd held on more than one occasion. And Johansson finishing on step 3. So as the old Smets once again receives the trophy, the flowers and the prize. 20 points, Bavorts 2nd, Johansson, Bartolini, Carlsen, Marcel van Drunen, Jan van Dorn on the VOR. 7th place, race 2 onto the line. Oh, a little bit eager to go there. And someone got an absolute blistering start. Red flag has gone out. Oh, and somebody goes down and collects himself a knock on the shoulder. 15 there. That, of course, is Daryl King. That looked like number 9 that went down. He went down with a very hard clatter as somebody ran straight into him. Number 9, and that was, of course, Willy van Vessel. And he was duly put into the ambulance and taken away for medical treatment. So the race was restarted. This time it was a fairly even one. On the inside it was number 1, Andre Bartolini, that got the start. And the two Yamaha men, Bavorts and Bartolini, setting the early pace. Then it was Carlsen, then it was Smets. Joachim Carlsen, back after a seasoned layoff with injury, really beginning to find his feet again and starting to put into consistent results. But Bavorts pushed his way through into the lead. Smets was once again on his normal forward charge, demoting Andre Bartolini down to 3rd. So Smets was, as always, in great shape and great form. Piling on the pressure, he went through then to take the lead, demoting Bavorts back to his familiar spot, 2nd place. By this time, I think Bavorts was wondering whether he would always be the bridesmaid and not the bride. But the bride indeed was Smets. Race 2, win 2, another 20 points, 40 altogether. The championship and the number 1 plate looking even more certain for the year 2001. Even time to do a wheelie. So Smets from Bavorts, from Johansson, King, Damien King there, brother to Daryl King, Massimo Bartolini, Marcel van Drunen on the Husqvarna in 7th place. So once again, Smets walks back onto the top of the number 1 step, a place that he now has his name permanently engraved. Smets 40 points, Bavorts 2nd, Johansson, King, van Drunen, Carlsen and Bartolini overall top 7. The champagne started to flow as we moved on to Grobbendonk. And Smets here, favourite again around this semi-sand track. Some horrendous weather conditions on the Saturday had left the track totally waterlogged, but the club had done a marvellous job of clearing things up overnight, and we were now ready for Sunday's racing, and the track was in excellent condition. Could Smets win again? We saw the return of 111 there, Stefan Everts, the former 125 and 250 world champion, who had broken his arm at the early season international in Beaucaire. This was his first race back. And at the start of the race, he was up there in the top 6. So as they headed down to that tight left-hander, it was all action. And a lot of crashes and falls, 6 there. Miska Olsen, Daryl King also caught up amongst that. But the battle was on once again, as always. Further down the field, because Bevorts and Smets were going at it, corner to corner to corner, as they came round to that particular corner that caused all the grief in the opening lap. So Bartolini was back in third, then Jan Hansen, then Johnny Lind and Marcel van Drunen, top 6. But Smets was unusually finding it difficult to get past Bevorts. Bartolini was in trouble. Bevorts was still there, but where was Smets? And Bevorts was in even bigger trouble. Crashing out of first place, giving that to Jol Smets, so the pressure had started to pay. Smets had kept nibbling away at the fellow Belgium's back wheel, and Bevorts made a mistake. And as you can see, it was a pretty aerobatic one as well. Very similar to a crash we saw earlier in the 250cc class. So Smets, keeping his head, keeping the bike on the track, was out there in front, 8 seconds in front of the remounted Marnik Bevorts. Meanwhile, further down the field, Daryl King was trying to make up places after that crash on the same corner that he went down there, being basically bulldozed off the track by the rider in front. I'm sure King would not be happy about that. Let's have a look at it again. King goes for the pass on the inside. The other man shuts the door, and there's nowhere for Daryl to go. Lucky to find himself a straw bale to land on. Soft. Smets, out in front, takes the checkered flag yet again. Another 20 points. Bevorts, despite that little tumble, held on to second place. Johansson came through to third. Edberg, Macklinger, James Marsh and Daryl King it was that finished the top 7. So as we waited for the track to be re-cleaned up and prepared for race 2, they're on the grid, ready to go. Dave Nicol, their race director, tells the starter to turn the board. The gate drops, here they come. Who's going to get the all-important first corner? Smets on the inside, but it was Bartolini that got the drop on the championship leader. Bevorts was back, as always, in third place. 63 going through as well there. That was Johnny Lind. So the battle was on at the front. Smets trying everything he could, with Bevorts beginning to close in on those two, so we're on for a 3-way tussle. Belgium 1, Belgium 2 and Italy 3. Smets trying everything he could to get past Andre Bartolini, but Bartolini refusing to give way. Smets looking for the inside line. This time he got it. Bartolini turns back on the inside, but Smets, great style, comes around and takes the lead. Bevorts was now looking for that second slot, but it wasn't long before Smets had made a mistake by trying to get away from the two chasing Yamahas. He was down, handing the lead back this time to Marnik Bevorts, and then Bartolini going through to take second place. So Smets dropping from first to third, with his teammate Peter Johansson back behind him in fourth. But Smets wasn't going to stay there long. He was soon up to second place and putting first place man Bevorts under some serious pressure. Could Smets get through in this closing lap? Whoa! And the answer was, by hook or by crook, he could try. Smets applying a little bit of Belgium elbow to his fellow countryman Marnik Bevorts, and Bevorts unable to respond to that except just by staying on the bike. And that collision caused damage to Bevorts' bike. It wasn't long before it gave up the ghost, overheated, and that was that. So Smets went into the lead. Bartolini went up into second place, with Johansson into third. 13 seconds separating them. We were looking at the finishing order, and Smets it was indeed, with a little bit of bulldog tactics, took second race win. So this is how the results stood. Smets from Bartolini from Johansson, Carlson, King, Edberg and Engdahl, Swedish rider, in 7th place. Smets took the overall from Johansson, Edberg, King, Bartolini, Bevorts. That's the standing so far. Jol Smets 449, Bevorts second. The question now, was anybody going to catch this man? And the answer to that was highly unlikely. We moved on to Namur, and Marnik Bevorts very aware of the fact that he has to win here if he stands any chance of that number 1 plate. If Smets wins, he'll be crowned champion with 3 rounds left to go. Start, here we go. Who's going to get that all-important first corner? Remember, Bevorts has to win here. Oh, and he's stuck on the gate. The bike has stopped. He's stalled the bike. He's got to get it started. And even worse news for him is that Smets leads. Bartolini's second, Johansson third. So that World Championship for Monique Bevorts has basically gone. Smets, if he stays where he is, will be world champion. Bevorts has got the bike started. He must be 30 seconds behind the rest of the field. Whoa! And Andre Bartolini there in a little bit of trouble. Johansson not able to capitalise on that mistake from the Italian. Let's have a look at it again. He lands, the bike slides sideways. So lucky not to go into the spectators. That was a very near nasty crash for him. So Johansson, well aware of the fact that he's still trying to hang on to that number 2 plate for next year. The man in front of him knows that he's lost the number 1 plate, but this man knows after that mistake at the start of the race, he's got no chance of first. Oh, and down goes number 10, Christian Burnham. The VOR rider taking an early tumble, but Smets, here he comes, takes the checkered flag, 20 points. Smets then, Bartolini, Johansson, Daryl King, Carlson, Fabrizio and Garcia, top 7. Race 2. What can Bevorts do this time? He's got to win. He must win. And hope that Smets finishes out of the top 6 or 7. The gate is about to drop. Heads are down. The thunder of the 500 4-stroke bikes here at the famous Namur circuit in front of the Citadel. You could call this the Wembley of motocross, but all sorts of problems there for some of them. But who's in the lead? And it's Bevorts. He's responded, but he's got Smets behind him, then Bartolini, then Massimo Bartolini, and here comes Bevorts. Carlson was back behind those group as well. There's Johansson back in 5th. So here they come in front of that famous cafe down at the bottom of the track. It's Monique Bevorts here in Belgium. Oh, Smets in trouble there, almost picking up the track hoarding. That would have spelt disaster for him had that got wrapped around his back wheel. That is what Bevorts needs. He needs Smets to DNF this race, although I think that's very unlikely to happen. Here comes Bevorts. The pressure is on. Can he stay out there? Can he win this? Oh, he's in trouble and he's off. Bevorts is off. And he knows that that's it. The championship is over for him. Oh, Smets almost going down as well. He has nothing to prove if he stays where he is. Let's have a look at that Bevorts again. Under power, the bike high sides, throws Bevorts straight over the bars. He rolls onto his back and off the track, and I think at that point he realised that it was all over. But not this man. Smets has decided to keep going. Smets, Johansson, Bartolini, Carlson, King there, Christian Burnham. But here he comes. He knows the World Championship is his. To the delight of the Belgian crowd here in Namur, they celebrate and applaud the new World Champion. Smets, Johansson, Bartolini, Carlson, King, Engdahl and Christian Burnham there round out the top 7 from this second race. There he is, the man on top of the podium who now stands on top of the world. And the number 1 plate handed over to him by Andre Bartolini. Smets is the new world 500cc motocross champion with 3 rounds yet to go. So, round 14. Oh, already problems there for some of the riders, but Smets, despite being crowned the new world champion, taking the number 1 plate away from that man in front of him, has decided he'd like to finish the season in good style, and best style to finish in is by winning, of course. So Smets took the lead there in race 1 here, pushing Andre Bartolini down to second. Bartolini fighting back, a good scrap on between those two. So Andre deciding to show the new world champion that it wasn't all that easy. Johansson still battling for Marnik Vervoorts. This was the scrap for second place in the series. Who was going to take the number 2 plate into 2001? It was going to be one of these two. And Vervoorts recovering from that crash that he had in Namur. But Smets in dominant form, coming through to take the race win. Andre Bartolini came home in second place. A good race from both of them. So classification: Smets, Bartolini, Vervoorts, Johansson, Aaltonen, Johnny Lind and Joachim Karlsson, the 2 Swedes. Lind now drafted in to the L&M Radson Husqvarna squad to replace the injured Stefan Everts. And Lind showing good form in race 1. Can he do it in race 2? Gate dropped, here they came. Who's going to get the all-important first corner? Well, Daryl King and number 1, Andre Bartolini, having a coming together. King having to take his time to get that Husqvarna started. Smets down in second, chasing Vervoorts. How often did we see this throughout the season? Karlsson, third place. Oh, and Smets making a very unusual mistake. Almost sliding off the track, but now need to get that KTM started again. So Vervoorts enjoying the pressure that has now been taken off by that mistake from Smets. Smets got the bike running again. Down in 13th place. A lot of work to do to get to the front of the race, but he doesn't have too much to worry about because he already is the world champion. Rupert Faulkner, the Austrian, good scrap on there with the number 1 man, Andre Bartolini. Smets off again. Well, the Iron Man, the Flemish line, showing that he does make mistakes. It didn't happen too often, but he is the new world champion, so he doesn't have a lot to prove. Can afford to take the occasional risk. But Marnik Vervoorts, hungry for that number 2 plate for next year, came through to take the race win. Aaltonen was second, Bartolini, Massimo, Pidi Hansen, Andre Bartolini, Smets finally got up to 6. So Vervoorts took the overall result from Smets here. Smets confirmed as champion, but the battle very much on for that number 2 plate for next year between Johansson, Vervoorts and Bartolini. Aaltonen there, Smets and Vervoorts on the podium as we moved on to the next round. Round 15. In the Netherlands, this was going to be a wet round once again. So as the riders came onto the line, the 5-second board was up, the gate dropped, here they came. This was all a question of survival. Track conditions, as you can see, were horrendous. And Marnik Vervoorts, a victim of those wet conditions at the start. That number 2 plate for next year looking even less likely to go his way. Smets, a master in these conditions, was out in front. The question was now, who was going to finish in second place? Smets, dominant, but almost making a mistake. And we've seen 1 or 2 come from the world champion, the new world champion for next year, as the rest of the riders managed to just slither and slide their way through the wet conditions. Marnik Vervoorts, after that disastrous start, was trying to pull himself back up through the leaderboard. The rain continued to fall. Smets still making unusual mistakes, but the conditions were really testing, and the Belgian rider having to use all his skill to stay out there in front. As the rest of the riders settled down to a steady pace. 31, that was Fabrizio Denis just going through. The red flag, however, went out in race 1. The checkered flag followed it. Smets came through to take the well-deserved win despite the conditions. What was race 2 going to be like? The rain had continued to fall, and so had some of the press people here. Well, live to fight another day. Smets, Leok, Altonen, Van Vessel, Nielsen, Lindy and Garcia there rounding out that top 7 from race 1. Race 2, track conditions no better. The rain was falling even more heavily. And for some of them, they didn't even survive the first 50 yards of the start. Or even the first corner. Conditions were horrendous. Neil Prince there, 99 getting away. Smets had decided the best place to be in this race was at the front, and rightfully so. He was off and gone, leaving the rest to play catch up. Jochen Karlsson, number 21, the Swede, who races in the UK, dealing with the conditions well. The Swede making up for that poor start of the season after the injury of last year. Oh, you can come in fancy dress, why not? Bevorts here, number 55, just recognisable with the radiator cowling hanging off the side of his Yamaha. He'd taken a tumble in the opening laps, a casualty of the worsening conditions. But as the rest of the field fought to stay on their wheels, this man came through to take his second race win. Joel Smets, demonstrating that the new world champion could deal with just about any type of condition, no matter how bad it was. So with Smets out there celebrating his victory, Bevorts came through to take second, with Karlsson third, Altonen, Leok, Nielsen, Andre Bartolini finishing in the top 7. So the overall result went to Smets, with Altonen, Leok, Nielsen, Karlsson, Lindy and Christian Bernan on a VOR, finishing in 7th position with 13 points. Smets then gets the trophy, one of many that he's taken this year. The final round moves to Rogenburg in Switzerland, and the weather had followed us there as well. Torrential rain here at the start of the first 500 race. It was 63, and that was Johnny Lindy, the Swede, but it wasn't long before Smets had got himself out in front, and for the rest of the field it was a question of just trying to stay on. Lindy was going well, the new recruit to the L&M Radson Husqvarna team, taking the place of the injured Stefan Everts, was riding well in these poor conditions. So was Miska Altonen, number 6. It really was just a question of survival. As you can see, the conditions were horrendous. Smets then took the first race convincingly, only just recognisable when he came across the checkered flag. Bartolini chased him home for second with Bevorts, Altonen, King, Johansson and Engdahl. That second position in the championship for next year looking very much in doubt for Johansson after that race. Race 2, and it was the 2 Yamahas that got away in front, with Karlsson behind. But as you can see, conditions were not any better. Smets had had a poor start. Bevorts had gone into the lead. Bartolini chased him in second place, but it was all about trying to stay on your bike. And some were struggling to manage just that. Bartolini had also been off the bike and was struggling to get it fired up again in these wet conditions. A nightmare for the lap scorers, trying to recognise who was who. But Bevorts was out there in front. He had decided the best place to win this race was out from the front. No better place to win any race. But that wasn't without the odd altercation. You've just got to pick it up now and get it started. Let's have another look at that. Beautiful style from Bevorts, but the whole bike just sliding away from him despite that steadying leg and just dumping him down onto the ground. But he stayed on, he picked it up, he got it started, and he came through to take the final win of the 2000 season here in Switzerland, which meant Bevorts won it from Johnny Lindy, Altonen, Johansson, Machlinger, Van Dorn and Karlsson. Top 7, no sign of Smets in race 2. He was way out of the reckoning. The overall result went to Bevorts, Altonen and Lindy. Smets then in 4th overall, Johansson, Machlinger and Daryl King. And the championship standings look like this. It was Joel Smets, the world champion. Bevorts then took the number 2 plate. Johansson relegated to 3. Bartolini, King, Altonen and Joachim Carlsen 7th. Then it was Van Dorn, Bartolini, Macklinger, Van Vessel, Leok, Van Drunen, Christian Bernen dropping from 10th place to 14th. So the manufacturers, it was KTM with 630 points, Yamaha, Husqvarna, Honda, VOR, Husaberg and Kawasaki. So Monique Bevorts then finishes on the rostrum at the end of the season at the last round. He'll be second next year to that man, the world champion, Joel Smets. We'll see you then.